What most people don't realize is that the men who consistently use escorts are not chumps, they're not losers. These are men who are often very good with women and are very well-respected professionals. In fact, there's many men who got introduced to escorts in that lifestyle by their bosses or other colleagues that they work with. And this is because there's a secret culture of escort use among the upper class, and it is a growing problem that is affecting millions of men who may have started out out of curiosity but are now addicted, watching as this double life starts to impact their reality more and more. So, how do ambitious and successful men become addicted to escorts? The answer might not be what you think. The first reason why successful men become addicted to escorts is because of the low barrier to entry. If you have a higher income, it's way easier to rationalize spending thousands of dollars on an experience. Because not only are you not confined by a budget, but you actually have the bankroll to pay for almost any experience from any woman you desire. It may seem pretty obvious, but when you have nothing financially restricting you, there's just one less thing that is limiting your behavior that might be a cap for other people. Due to these reasons, it makes sense why escorts are a very sought after and highly addictive service, because you feel the rush and the excitement of the experience that you've been planning or anticipating for some time now, while also getting relief from the pain of working a stressful position or a demanding job. Which actually brings me to my next point, why successful men go and get addicted to escorts, which is that it gives them a sexual escape. What most people don't realize is it's not the women or the sex that the men really want. Sure, that's a big part of it, and it's something that does bring them a lot of pleasure, but they really want to get relief from pain and experience a sexual high to replace that negative emotion. Think about it this way. If you own a business, that is a very stressful position to be in. You have a lot of pressure and a lot of people depending on your ability to grow the business, especially if you have employees. And one bad month can cause a lot of chaos. Or if you're a high-level professional, there's a lot of stress at your position. You have to meet these very high expectations, and that's oftentimes working yourself into the ground, doing the dirty work that no one else wants to do. And if you've ever been in a very professional environment like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because this causes many guys who are very high level to have very poor habits. Oftentimes it's drugs or alcohol or sex, and that kind of culture runs rampant at these higher levels due to the stress and the burden that it brings. If you know what I'm talking about, you know this to be true. And that level of pressure and pain leads to men getting addicted to escorts very quickly because it provides them a very powerful escape. The pain of that lifestyle goes away for a little bit, and the man can get that escape with a very pleasurable experience. And you can fulfill whatever fantasy he wants. There's literally nothing holding him back from paying for one or two or having a trip or, fulfilling any fantasy he might think. And again, it's not the women or the sex that keeps these guys coming back. It's the escape. And how I've learned this is actually very interesting. I found that in men who become addicted to escorts, what really brings them the most pleasure was the chase. It was the pure adrenaline rush of the anticipation in the planning of the event, and that was far more enjoyable than the actual sex for the addict. Honestly, the only way to experience a more pleasurable experience when you're actually acting out with the escort was if you were experiencing novelty by allowing the addiction to intensify and go to further extremes. That was the only way that the chase was not more enjoyable than the actual experience. And this is why I say men do not want escorts, that they really want a sexual escape. And I made a whole video on that, especially if you were a man who is ambitious and is successful, who is working a difficult job. And this perfectly brings me to my next point. It's something that I think is relatable to a lot of men. I think what I'm about to say is honestly one of the core problems that you have if you are caught up and addicted to this sort of lifestyle as you're watching it continue to destroy your life. That is, successful men stay addicted because staying clean hinders your productivity. Something that I see far too often with high-achieving guys is that they want to stay clean because they see how their escort addiction is hurting their relationships. It's hurting those around them. They may feel like they're living a double life, or it's hurting their self-esteem and making them feel like a shell of themselves. But what happens is when they're constantly fighting urges, like one pops up at work, right? And they have to deal with it. They just literally have to force themselves to not act on that urge and to go onto the websites. They can maybe push it away for some time, but it's just going to come back an hour later. And it's this nagging and distracting temptation that seemingly steals all of your focus and all of your energy. And it gets to a point where you just say to yourself, like, okay, well, you win. This is my last time. I'm never going to do this again. I just need to get this out of my system so I can go back to work. I hear that far too often. And who can relate to that? It's a very annoying temptation. And I think guys find themselves in this catch-22 where they want to quit desperately, but quitting also sucks. Like, they don't have access to that same sexual escape anymore, and they feel like they have to restrict themselves to stay clean. What ends up happening is nothing changes, and they watch as the addiction continues to get worse and worse. So if you can relate to this, I'm here to tell you today that it does not have to be this way at all. Real recovery does not require you to fight against your own body and use all of your willpower to resist urges. It's far from that. Real recovery is working with your body instead of fighting against it. A good analogy to showcase what guys are often doing to themselves in recovery is like the kid in the cookie jar, right? The little kid wants to dip his hand into the cookie jar, get a couple cookies even though he's not supposed to, and his mom is constantly berating him and saying, no, you can't eat that. And the thing is, the kid's desire does not just go away after his mom says no and denies him of having access to those cookies. Instead, he plans another way to get the cookie instead. He tries to sneak it, he tries to scheme, and wait for the perfect opportunity. Unfortunately, many successful men do that to themselves. They rely on willpower and motivation and discipline to resist urges because they have a lot of it, but it does nothing to change the desire deep down. The key is to understand that your body is actually trying to help you. Your body wants to go and give in to this self-destructive vice because it wants to escape pain or discomfort, and your body is perfectly willing to sacrifice long-term fulfillment in order to solve that short-term problem because it has not been handled properly. So a better solution is to understand why you are getting an urge so you can take proper action to solve the root problem. Because when you do this, the problem goes from denying the urge and fighting the urge and trying not to think about it and pushing it away and using willpower to the problem becoming why you want to go and escape in the first place. And when men learn this, it makes recovery so much easier and a lot more straightforward because they know the root problem. They know why they want to go and escape, and they can be able to handle that properly. And when you do this for some time and you use self-talk properly to back this up, you kill two birds with one stone. You're staying clean and you no longer have to fight and resist temptations, and you're also building up a life that's so enjoyable, so fun, and so fulfilling that you no longer want to escape in the first place. And that's how you can get clean and stay clean. So overall, successful and ambitious men are very prone to getting addicted to escorts and other sexual escapes. But the ironic thing is, they're usually the guys that try the hardest to quit. Recovery to them is just a battle. And I've heard guys tell me that they wish they weren't sexual at all because it seems like that was the only way to get rid of this addiction. They rather be celibate. They rather have no sexual urges. And I've heard people take drugs to diminish their libido so they didn't have to deal with this problem. And the truth is, this problem isn't due to their sexuality or due to their sex drive or their willpower or discipline. What is really holding them back is not having the right support and an actionable process that delivers results. Like, I've heard of horror stories with therapy or support groups where the man never learned an actual game plan and he continued having to rely on willpower and fighting these temptations and just going to war with himself. And it was a waste of time, it was a waste of energy, and he continued to tax himself just to stay clean, and all in all, it just never worked. And man, I've been there. I understand what it feels like to be in those shoes, which is exactly why I created Recovery Blueprint, where my team and I help men achieve freedom from their sexual vices. And we just want to help our audience by giving you the opportunity to book a free consultation with myself, where I can walk you through what's going on in your recovery and help you game plan a custom recovery process designed for your own unique situation, so that you can learn how to leave this double life behind and have freedom so you can become a more optimized version of yourself. With that said, stay strong, stay safe out there, and take action. Peace.